guys, welcome to the conclusion video of my 45-degree hyperextension 30-day experiment. I've never done an experiment like this, but I decided to do it because a number of reasons. So I've been lifting consistently for about 7 years, and I've tried all different kinds of things. I started off doing really high volume bodybuilding training. I've done only glute specific training once I discovered Brett Contreras in like 2013, I think it was. I've done powerlifting type stuff very poorly, and during my bout of trying powerlifting stuff, I was going through a very stressful time and all kinds of stuff, overtraining. Anyway, I ended up sustaining an injury to, I think, my sciatic nerve. It was never really diagnosed, but I've had a lot of hip pain, and so I've had a lot of trouble with exercising, and even since then, that's been 4 years ago, I've had a hard time finding exercises that I feel fit my body, because I just have I don't know, everything about certain exercises feels slightly off. Like I'll feel really strong, but then for some reason I'm sore in places I shouldn't be, like my hips hurt or my nerve is acting up again or something like that. So I've had a really hard time the past couple of years trying to get a workout program that works for me. And I've never had my own coach, so I don't have anybody watching me saying, hey, you should change this, change that. I've only had a couple people who've been able to do that for me, but nothing consistently. So I had a client about a month and a half ago who pointed out to me, she's like, you may be only 5'2", but you have a really long torso. And I was like, wait, what? So I actually measured from head to acetabulum, head to crotch, and then from crotch down to the floor, and it is a 4-inch difference in my torso length to my leg length. So yes, my torso is much, much longer than my legs. So it changed my perspective on all kinds of things. And that's not to say there's anything wrong with me. That's not to say I have to change absolutely everything, but knowing that is making me feel like, okay, now I have enough experience in strength coaching that I can change the way that I'm approaching my own training, tweak things just a little bit here and there just to fit my body. So like I tried doing low bar squats. They felt amazing. I love them. And right after I got done with that, I was like, you know what? I should try some kind of hip strengthening exercise that's not going to overstress my lower back. 45-degree hypers, but not the normal ones. So I remember, I think in 2013 or 2014, I read an EMG experiment that Brett Contreras had done in his old glute lab, where he compared, I think it was good mornings, 90-degree hyperextensions, and 45-degree hypers. And 45-degree hypers had the most total glute activation, and they are actually just underneath hip thrusts as far as the total amount of EMG activity. So that exercise has always been in my mind. And then he also has his clients do a variation where they're actually flexing the spine, removing the erectors from the situation, and only using the glutes. So I have only tried it a couple of times, so I was like, let's go for it. So that is why this entire experiment started. Just did day 1 of my 30-day 45-degree hyper extension experiment thing with a glute focus. So I'm not focusing on the back muscles, instead I'm focusing on rounding the back and all that stuff. I'll show it later. Anyway, I did it on this dude right here. So this is actually a decline bench machine. What brand is this? Body Gear. It's from, I don't even know when, I've had it for years. The actual decline bench section rotted off a long time ago, so I only use it for 45-degree hypers and other variations of that, but works like a charm. So I did 1 set of 50, and then wrote my new workouts for the month. I'm doing 3 sets of 10 every day for my normal workouts, so that's only going to be 1 main workout a week, 1 main like full leg day a week. And then I have an upper body day, and then outside of that, I'm going to be doing 45-degree hypers every single day. Don't know how many sets or how many reps, but I'm going to do the exercise. I'm going to do the exercise every single day for 30 days, and we're going to see what kind of changes and maybe glute growth I get. A few points to remember when setting up your 45-degree hyper. You want the pad to be high enough that it's into the hip bones, just above the pubic bone, but not so high that you're not going to be able to flex at the hips while doing the exercise. You'll anchor in your heels and try to turn your toes out to about 45 degrees, since the glutes tend to run at 45-degree angles to the femurs. You'll bend over the front of the pad and also round the upper back and slightly tuck the chin. That way, whenever you go to lift, you're not using the erectors for the exercise. You're instead thrusting the hips into the pad. That way the glutes are doing the majority of the work while the back is kind of getting a little bit of a rest. And this is the same even if you're loaded. So the 45-degree hyper is interesting because it actually includes pretty much activation from the upper and the lower quadrant of the glutes. This is Dr. Contreras' book, Glute Lab. I'm still reading through it. So these are the workouts that I put together for the month of October going through this experiment. I had my normal, pretty, decent upper body day, and then I had a lower body day focused on the 45-degree hyper, and then I had a number of other lower body exercises. I was really particular not to include any other hip extension exercises besides the goblet squat, which really wasn't that bad because I don't have heavy enough weight at home to do this properly. But I wanted to make sure that the 45-degree hyper was emphasized the most, in that if I achieved any glute growth, it was going to come primarily from that exercise, and the other exercises would just kind of be those side helper exercises. Another reason I didn't include any other hip extension exercises like deadlifts or other types of squats is just because I've had this issue with my sciatic nerve. I really wanted to be able to make it through this experiment without having to stop because of the pain in my hip. Now I will say that by the end of this 30 days, actually probably about halfway through, I was having a pretty constant twinge in my hip. So my last day was yesterday and I could still kind of feel it. It's not so bad that I would consider it painful, but I kind of know that it's there. So it wasn't something that could be avoided, but luckily I didn't make anything worse or backtrack into places I've been before with some really severe hip and leg pain. These are my stats from this month. So you can see that I started off my very first day with one set of 50 at body weight, and I wasn't really sure what to do at this point. So I was just going with one set, and then I ended up sticking with that scheme for the majority of my quote non-workout days. But then on my regular workout days, upper body days was usually 2 sets, and then lower body days was usually 3 sets, and I did gradually increase my number of repetitions and the amount of weight that I was doing. I pretty much PR'd every step of the way here. So even though this was supposed to be one big experiment to see how my body changed and how much stronger I got, it did turn into basically a bunch of small experiments, because every day I was experimenting with range of motion, with the way that I thought about the exercise. Was I thinking about pulling my heels back into the anchor pad? Was I thinking about pressing my hips forward? Did I over round my back? Did I keep my chin that tucked, or did I allow my upper back to round but my chin to be neutral? And you can even see in this video that I have differences in my range of motion each repetition. I didn't want to overtax my lower back, and I always felt like if I was extending too much through the lower part of the spine, then I would really start to feel that sciatic nerve lighting up. So I was trying to limit that range of motion a little bit. I also played around a little bit with the tempo. So even though in this particular video I'm going pretty slow, later on I started to go a little bit faster. Here I was just trying to focus on actually squeezing the glutes, making sure I was feeling the muscles working. But later on I found that if I was going a little bit faster, that I would feel a bit more of a burn. And I actually still felt a pretty good glute squeeze on each repetition, even though I wasn't taking that time to keep that mechanical tension very high. One thing I did learn from this experiment is that keeping up with something like this every single day is very difficult, and it's easy to forget. That became kind of a problem on a couple of different days. So right before I started this 45-degree hyper experiment, I was like, hey, I should set reminders on my phone so I don't forget to do this. And then I was like, nah, I won't forget. I've forgotten many times, and now I've taken a shower and I gotta do it again. The cool part about the experiment was the fact that my strength went up almost every day or every other day. I was able to increase the number of repetitions I was doing. I was able to increase the weight that I was doing. And I wouldn't always go up linearly. Sometimes I would just drop down and do just body weight and do a crap ton of repetitions, like maybe upwards of 100. But it was nice to see the improvements in my strength. I also was noticing that I was able to get through the sets easier. So I wasn't having to take as many rest breaks between repetitions. I was actually able to just go straight through at a similar tempo, whether I was using the slower tempo or I was trying to bust them out really, really fast. But regardless, it was still burning like crazy, usually by the end. Okay, last day. I'm trying to pump it up before I go to work. I'm gonna try to get 65 reps with 35 pounds. See if I can actually make it all the way through it. Here we go. Overall, this experiment took me about 31 or 32 days because I did accidentally miss 2 days of the experiment. So I did have 2 separated rest days. One thing I do wish is that I had thought the experiment through a bit more before I had done it. That way I could have been more consistent with my methods, just because things were a little bit all over the place. Even though I did stick with one consistent set, I really didn't take it to failure at the beginning, probably the first half of the experiment. Like I said, I was pretty concerned about my sciatic nerve, so I was afraid to overdo things. But in retrospect, I wish I had taken it all the way to failure, just to see if my strength really did go up as much as I think it did. Did this experiment, especially now that it's over. But I learned a lot about the hip extension exercise through forcing myself to do it every single day. I also learned a lot about human psychology. Like I said, it was really difficult to do this every day, and as a coach, it made it make more sense to me why it's so hard for some clients to do something every single day, whether it's like food logging or an exercise. Having to remember every single day was really difficult, and I tend to be a procrastinator, so I really pushed it off. And there were probably at least half of these days where I was doing these hypers at like 10 o'clock at night, because that's when I would remember as I was stepping into the shower, even if I had it on my mind all day long. So that part was very difficult, but I got really good at the exercise. I was able to get a feel for how my glutes work, what kind of cues work in my head to make this exercise work for me. I really didn't see a lot of glute growth, and if you know anything about growing the glutes, that kind of makes sense. I really didn't do a lot of other stuff to help with the glutes. I did some hip abduction, I did some very light squatting, but besides that, I didn't really do a lot to help grow the glutes, because you need to hit the glutes from multiple angles in order to hit all the muscle fibers. Didn't really do that, so to even see an 1/8 of an inch increase, if that even counts, if I'm not a little bloated today, then that's actually pretty good. Thank you very much for watching this video. I super appreciate your support. If you've watched me through this 30 days, thank you so much for all of the encouragement that you have given. I cast a vote in my Instagram stories, and everyone voted that they want me to do another experiment on my delts next month. So next is going to be delts, but it's going to be set up much differently than the hyperextension experiment, because I have learned so much from this. Also, I do online coaching and consulting for fitness and nutrition, so if you're interested in my services, feel free to drop down into the description box. I do one-time consultations. I also do monthly coaching. That way you're able to find your fitness goals, and we make little tweaks just like I did with myself in my own experiment. Try throwing these into your program if you're not doing them already. There's lots of research on exercises like this. They help with overall lockout if you're doing deadlifts. They also help with diminishing some back pain because your glutes are helping to take over some of the load. They help to support the lower back and those muscles. Plus, who doesn't like big butts? I don't know, it's just like the thing now. Alright, so throw this into your training program, and if you have any questions or comments, drop them in the comments below. Click the like button, you can subscribe if you want. I can't guarantee when I'll have another video, but eventually I will put another one up just like this.